This video is for you who, just like me, have also suffered a spinal cord injury. In 2016, during a training session in a cycling discipline, mountain biking, which was my sport and in which I was a professional athlete, I had a serious accident and injured my C4 and C5 cervical vertebrae, becoming quadriplegic with an initially complete injury. And at that moment, I could naturally, just like maybe you did when you had your injury, ask the question, why did this happen to me? But I was lucky enough at that moment to remember that when I was on my bike, having the best sensations that a human being can have on a bike, winning championships at the national level, I never stopped and asked myself, why is this happening to me? When I was at the top at that moment, I realized that the right question would be, why not? Why not me? And this may seem like a simple change of questions, but it's very important for you to move out of the victim mindset and put yourself in the position of a learner. And it will also help you find the first of the five major intrinsic motivators that we're going to work on here today, which is meaning. And another important point here to help you understand this first major pillar, which is meaning, is what the former Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius said: nothing happens to a man that is not proper to man. In other words, if this is happening to you, it's because you have the ability to overcome it and turn it into something good. And this will help you understand that no matter how painful all these limitations and pains involved are, after all, we are the ones feeling all of this. We really know what it's like. It's important to understand that our pain is not the center of the world. You just have to look to the side or at the rest of the world. You'll easily understand that all of us, that every human being here is facing their own battles. I, for example, even though I'm already walking and doing everything I love most, am facing a series of battles at this very moment. And if you can understand this, stepping out of the situation a bit, looking at yourself as a third person, this is another important exercise as well. It will determine how you go through this adversity. And if you manage to do this in a virtuous way, it will directly impact your results and your future. You can be sure of that. And this today, when I look back, I see that it was one of the biggest differentiators in my recovery, even with few resources, material or external. And now moving on to our second intrinsic motivator, which is curiosity, I'm going to leave you with two questions that will help awaken it in you. The first is, what could this be here to teach me? And the second is, where could this take me that in any other way I would never reach? Think about them for a moment. And of course, you probably don't have these answers today, or you won't have these answers today. After all, there are things you'll only understand in 5 years, in 10 years, or in 20 years. Something I want to make sure stays with you in these old words is that nothing happens by chance. So for now, I just want you to trust in this and let these two questions stay with you throughout this whole process and your journey, because they will be essential for you to find meaning in everything you're going through, because they are fundamental for you to always look for the positive side of everything that happens to you and seeking the purpose for which this is happening to you instead of asking why. Because asking why puts you in the place of a victim, and that will only lower your vibration and lead you to the negative side of things. And this will affect your results, just as I mentioned back in the first pillar. But don't be in a hurry to find these answers. Much less am I here to give you ready-made answers. I'm here to help you find your own answers throughout this unique and personal process of yours. And staying curious along your journey is a way to remain open to the infinite possibilities that present themselves to you every day. Every day we have 6,000 new neurons in our body. So I always say that each day we have the option to be the commander, the general of these 6,000 new positive possibilities are born within us every day. And do you understand this? Just as all information is now received and interpreted differently by your central nervous system, it can also be transformed and expressed through you, delivering something that perhaps no other human being has ever brought to this universe. And contribute in this extraordinary, unique way, only you can deliver it. After all, just like a spinal cord injury, each one is unique, just as every human being is unique. So stay curious and keep searching for that. How could I contribute, and in what way that no other human being has ever contributed on this planet up until now? There's even a formula that I adapted based on Aristotle's law of act and potency, which for our case would go like this: tetraplegia or high level paraplegia raised to its maximum potential equals extraordinary potential. And that's why I'm here, to help you extract the most from the potential that exists within you. Right now, putting it into motion through a new mindset, new habits to truly transform all of this into potential that will bring above average results. In other words, extraordinary results. And another question I need you to ask yourself is, what should I let go of in order to move forward more lightly along this journey, which we now know is gravity times 2 times 3? What do I need to let go of to continue on this path in a lighter way? And here, I'm not talking about weight on a scale. Maybe you even need to look at that. I'm talking about things like, for example, who should I forgive, for instance? Maybe the person who caused my injury, or maybe I need to forgive myself. That question of why did I do that on that day? Why did I take that path? Why did I make that decision that day? Have you forgiven yourself? And have you forgiven those involved in your accident or your injury? Maybe you're even angry at God right now, thinking he doesn't exist, because if he did, you wouldn't be in this wheelchair. And why am I telling you this? Because these issues can be heavier than 200 kilos on a scale. And maybe they're acting as a real anchor in your recovery, keeping you stuck back on the day of your injury. Maybe it was a year ago, 5 years ago, sometimes even 10 years ago. They're keeping you there on that day, even though 10 years have passed. That's why it's so important to look at these 2 points. And this question has been with me during this exact moment, as I've spent 2 years trying to get back to running. To be one of the first former quadriplegics with the level and severity of injury, I had to get back to running. And these questions have been with me sometimes daily, thinking about what I need to let go of so that this run can happen through me. And these aren't physical issues, they're the patterns I created in the first 8 years of my recovery. It's negative neuroplasticity without a doubt. But what do I need to let go of mentally and spiritually so that this run can happen through me? What are the fears, for example? The fear of falling. We've worked on that a lot over the last 2 years, because many times we see that it's not a lack of strength. Sometimes it seems like, wow, there's a lack of strength in the right leg, but it's not about strength. They are co-contractions that came with negative neuroplasticity or that we still haven't managed to recover and convert. But most of the time we see that it's not about strength, that there's something beyond that, something metaphysical. And that's very much what I'm going to bring to you throughout all of my work. And to close this pillar, it's all of this that keeps me curious throughout this whole process. Always searching for and focusing on solutions instead of focusing on limitations, obstacles, and challenges, which, as we well know, are enormous. And another point that I used a lot during my recovery was, instead of looking at everything I had lost and everything that was missing, and at all the time it would take for my recovery to happen, I decided from the start to celebrate the small victories, the small miracles that happened daily back at the beginning of my recovery 9.5 years ago. And this created in me a continuous state of gratitude. And today, neuroscience proves to us that this is the highest of feelings, and that when you feel truly authentic gratitude, your body releases it. Serotonin releases oxytocin, which are neurochemicals that bring the best sensations, feelings of happiness, and that are highly anti-inflammatory, that bring healing and put you in an expansive state, which is the state that puts you in an advanced stage of recovery, instead of the withdrawn state, which, rather than putting you in this accelerated state of recovery that allowed me to take my first steps at just 7 months, the withdrawn state will close all mental and spiritual doors, leaving you blocked. And this will hinder your recovery and the entire process of training and treatment you might be undergoing, even if you are relying on the most advanced external technologies in the world. If you are in this withdrawn state where there is a shield between you and everything you are doing, and it is interfering with your intentions, behind every action you take, your recovery will take much longer. That's why we're talking here about internal motivators, because I want to influence your intention, your state of mind, your mental state, because all of this is what will really make a difference in each of your actions and consequently in your results. That's why your healing will come from raising your level of consciousness. And for that, you need to take your focus off your current pain and limitation from today. Want a practical exercise for this? Contemplate the miracle of being alive, the miracle of being able to breathe. My injury really brought this to me. Back in the ICU, during the 22 days I spent there, 7 days in an induced coma, and then the other 15 days conscious, I thought a lot about this. When I was breathing with the help of machines, I thought, wow, what a miracle it is just to be breathing. When I wanted to drink water and couldn't, when I wanted to eat something simple and couldn't. So those moments brought me this reflection, and I don't know if you've ever stopped to think about it, but take a moment and contemplate this. The miracle that is being alive, recovering, being at home right now, close to the people you love most. That is a miracle and a tremendous gift. You've already overcome so much to get here. And if your accident, just like mine, where I fell in a completely remote place and was only found 40 minutes later, if my accident helped me, and if yours was like that too, it will help you find what I'm trying to tell you right now. Albert Einstein has a quote that I really like, and that sums up what this is all about as well. He says there are two ways to live. One is believing that there are no miracles, and the other is believing that everything is a miracle. My accident, above all, makes me even more certain that the second option is the best one, that it's the true one. Everything is a miracle. And this stepping away from the center, it's very important, because when your pain and your limitations become the standard, the filter, the way you see everything in the world, that will always lead you to the most negative side of everything all the time. Our mind, by the way, is designed for this, to focus on the negative, and that will slow down your growth. That's why you need to keep yourself in check and focus on the positive all the time, to even break this natural mechanism of our mind. And that's why suffering by itself doesn't transform or improve anyone. It can bring you wisdom or resentment, depth or bitterness, humility or cynicism. The difference will always be in your inner internal attitude. And what will help you change? All of this, in addition to our module about the extraordinary mind on the platform and all the content available there, is to initially understand that you are facing an ultra marathon, not a 100-meter dash. So we have a long road ahead of us. Another point is that your growth will sometimes be invisible to your own eyes. And in many moments, even during the process, it will still be invisible. Imagine a staircase where you are on the horizontal level, you are still on the ground. You need to put in a lot of energy to break through the vertical line. But then you enter a plateau where you will have to train a lot, put in a lot of energy, do a lot of visualizations, so that after some time you accumulate so much energy, neurological information there, so that you can then go up. The second step, the second vertical line, then you will reach a plateau again, and so on successively until you have the neurological information, synapses, and neural pathways needed to keep breaking through step by step until you reach the top of your staircase, which is your recovery, your goal. And that's why the beginning of recovery or your change is so challenging, because to go from 0 to 0.1, then to 0.2, you need to put in a lot of energy. After all, you still have little foundation, few neural synapses, little accumulated information, and there's still a lot of entropy. But after you reach one, from one you go to 2 to 3 to 4, and after 5 you might even jump to 10. And then you start having more information, more synapses, and recovery happens in an exponential way. So persevere and trust in this moment, the beginning of your recovery, of your change. Because when you reach the height of the graph and enter the vertical and exponential line, then what once seemed impossible will become inevitable for you. Just like being here at this very moment, after 2 years of training, my running project, which we were going to include in the documentary In Search of the Run, impossible, in quotes. But at that moment, after many doubts in the first year, I kept repeating to myself, no, evolution is sometimes invisible to my eyes. This became a mantra for me. After I got through the first year, I entered the second year, and now we're entering the third year. Now, what was once impossible has in fact become inevitable. Now I am absolutely certain that it's inevitable, that it's just a matter of time, that in the next 6 months I will be running. So now I'm at the exponential part of the graph. That's how our recovery is. That's how life is. That's how everything is. So persevere and trust until you get there. Because when you get there, you'll be sure it was worth it. All the waiting, all the consistency, and all the perseverance. And now, moving on to the third of our five intrinsic internal motivators, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question, as we say here in Brazil. How can I serve the world through this process of mine? Instead of just asking or wanting the world to serve you. And this third pillar is purpose. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now, producing this content for free. For you, it's a way to put this purpose into practice and serve you, aiming to help you see what I realized back then, what I studied my whole life, what I put into practice over the last 2 decades so that all of this can help you. And it's also a way to give back to the universe, to the whole. Call it whatever you prefer, to give back for so many victories I've had in my life so far. But all of this as well, I found along the way. After all, purpose has never found someone standing still. It has always found someone who was already on the path. Someone who was doing, learning, putting things into practice, making mistakes, doing it again, correcting, and becoming better every day. And with that said, are you already in motion? Are you already on the path? If not, purpose and meaning will never reach you. And this brings us to our fourth motivator, intrinsic and foundational, which is autonomy. This is about using 20% of your productive time each day to do, work, and study with complete autonomy. It means dedicating yourself with total freedom and creativity, without any fixed rules, to that training, that work, that activity you are most interested in, that you love the most. Something you could do all day or talk about all day without getting stressed. Think about what that would be for a few moments. Have you found it? Now dedicate 20% of your day to it. Here's where total autonomy comes in, and now I'm going to give you a fact that will surprise you. That 20% will turn into 50% of your results. And it's not just me saying this. These are the findings of the most recent studies. So, how are you going to use your extra time, or 20% of your productive time, from now on? Maybe at first you'll need to dedicate it just to finding out. What is that topic or activity where you're going to seek total autonomy? Maybe it's your training, your physical therapy, or Felipe's workouts on the platform. So dig deep within yourself, look inside, and keep digging until you find what you're going to do. Maybe this will bring you something you've wanted to do your whole life, but perhaps never had the time for. And who knows, maybe now you're even more extraordinary because of your injury. Not only will you do it, but you'll do it in a way that no other human being on the planet has ever done before. Search deeply within yourself until you find it. And then dedicate 20% of your day, your productive hours, exclusively to this with discipline. Finally, we come to our last intrinsic motivator, which is deep knowledge. And this will inevitably provide you with the essential strength you'll need to successfully navigate and overcome this ultra marathon ahead of you, specifically known as a spinal cord injury, which is the invaluable perspective of long term vision. Deep knowledge comes from that formula a researcher discovered and concluded after studying violinists, and he found that for them to truly become good at something, it took on average 10 years of dedication, or 10,000 hours. And here, it's important for you to know this so you can have that long term vision throughout your recovery and not get anxious, for example, about it or about immediate results. But what I'm bringing to you here, which is the formula for the impossible, will definitely help you achieve your goals much faster. And that's why we need to seek this deep knowledge, which is what my former cycling coach and one of my greatest life mentors used to call flight hours. In other words, hours and hours of dedication, fully focused on building and seeking out the solutions and circumstances you need. And today I add that along with all of this, above all, you should also develop a sharper intelligence that goes far beyond what most people pursue. Traditionally, this is what will make you achieve your goals much sooner than you could ever imagine. And for that, another extremely important thing you need to understand is that suffering and adversity are part of life, but they are a crossroads, not a finish line. And how you go through your suffering is what will determine the final outcome and consequently your results. If you manage to get through them, staying true to the truth throughout this long process, that is what will protect your soul along the way and bring back to you much more than you could ever imagine. That's how it's been for me. And everything that has been set up to this point will make you release and produce, increase the production and release of the six neurochemicals, which are the magic ingredients that will help you stay strong and do very well throughout this long process of yours. And in this way, it will accelerate your results, which are the six neurochemicals: dopamine, endorphin, noradrenaline, oxytocin, endorphin, and anandamide. I'll provide an extra lesson talking only about what drains, what inhibits the release of each one of them, and most importantly, which is what we need, what stimulates the production and release of each one. Well, my friends, this was just the introduction to everything I have studied and learned over the last 2 decades, and which I will share with you in detail throughout this mentorship program. I must confess, this is what I love doing the most today, besides giving lectures, and it's what gives meaning to everything I went through regarding tetraplegia and all that I have experienced up to now. And beyond everything I sought out and experienced in practice, today I am certain that what we are talking about here is the most up to date knowledge in terms of human psychology and neuroscience as well. This is my deep understanding of this subject. And all of this gives me the certainty that, as I told you before, absolutely nothing is by chance. Everything was a perfect preparation so that I could help you who are on the other side of the screen going through the same thing I went through in another country at this very moment, and helping you to also overcome and conquer your own impossible. Rest assured, that will be my greatest happiness. That's why this is the best way I've found to give back to the universe for all the blessings I've had in my life, and I continue to receive them every day here, despite the challenges. So, if you're interested, send me a message and I'll be waiting for you in the 8 1 hour individual video call sessions, in addition to the other 10 hours of recorded content you'll have access to in this project. See you soon.